right, welcome back, everybody. We are just hours away from testimony of Akio Toyoda and from Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke. A very busy day on the Hill. Joining us right now with a preview of those hearings is Congressman Paul Kanjorski. He's a member of the Financial Services and the Oversight Committee, so he's going to be getting a double dose of these hearings today. Also, our guest host today is Dick Armey, who's the co-chairman of Freedom Works and former House Majority Leader. Gentlemen, let's start off on this. And Congressman Kanjorski, we'll start with you. Do you want to talk about Toyota first, or do you want to talk about Bernanke first? Because you're going to have a lot to juggle today. I
first want to register my objection to a comment Joe made earlier about a hair test. I'm worried about failing that hair test.
We don't have you on for your hair, Congressman. And I have a name of someone, if you want to call someone after the show that might be able to help you out. They don't have a name on the door when you go to them.
Okay, Joe. No, this is going to be an exciting day, an interesting day, but it can be a positive day or a negative day. And I hope all of us across the country, and particularly the Congress, make it a positive day. We can concentrate on the negative, and it really doesn't accomplish anything. But what we can accomplish with the Toyota hearing is to set up procedures. And Darrell Issa, earlier on your show, suggested a world inventory of all products. This is something that we can do in a bipartisan way. We can do it right now, start that process, and it's part of the global market to have that type of a record. And then this experience would turn into something very positive that would affect the future in a very positive way.
All right, that's an excellent point, and that's a wonderful note to take. I guess one question we have, though, is there's a lot of sound and a lot of fury from all sides on this, and it is difficult as somebody on the outside to try and figure out what's real, where there's real smoke, what needs to be paid attention to, and when things are maybe just being used for one reason or another. How can we watch these hearings today and try and navigate that?
Well, I think have an open mind, but you know, I think we'd all go in. I'm going to pick on my friend Dick Armey, because Dick and I served together for a long time. And Dick will recall this, because I remember sitting on the floor of the House of Representatives when Dick made a speech in the 1993 budget battle, where he predicted what would happen if we adopted Bill Clinton's budget in 1993. And, you know, all of us have made those suggestions or predictions that were just dead wrong. And I'm not bringing it up so Dick has to make a confession like that on the station. I'm bringing it up because it points out something we should all do. When we have made misjudgments, and God knows I've made a lot of them, and I've made them just recently in some of the processes we've gone through, maybe it would start establishing some sort of credibility out there for our institutions if those of us that are in the public view start admitting to some of those failures. And it would be healthy. It would be saying something that we too know that not everything we see in the future happens, not everything we predict in the future happens, and that we also make mistakes, but from those mistakes we shall learn.
Well, I appreciate you remembering me that way, Paul. Well, of course, to my defense, with respect to that speech at that time, I had no way of knowing that President Clinton was going to enjoy the luxury of working with a Republican majority in just a few years, but still, nevertheless. The Toyota thing, I've watched this with some interest, and I think probably the most distressing thing I have seen in there, since we're not living in a world of caveat emptor where the consumer himself would be ever vigilant, but we're living in a world where the consumer presumes that the government is looking out for his interests. This story that broke about how Toyota was congratulating themselves for having negotiated a relaxed recall with some agency of the government is more distressing to me, because that tells me the government is at least culpable, shares in the culpability of any tragedies that came from this failure to get on top of these recalls quicker. And of course, the government is endowed with the public trust. Toyota is not, but the government is. So once again, I'm distressed at the possibility that what we really ought to be looking at here, rather than having a pretty good show of the world about how we're getting down Toyota's neck, is looking within the government at, all right, who let us down in doing our duty after we assume the responsibility for protecting the consumer.
Well, Dick, I would disagree with you fundamentally. See, you're a Republican, so you're in favor of government getting involved in running everybody's lives and running industry. I believe in caveat emptor and free enterprise system. That's what the tort system is all about. If a private company makes mistakes, covers it up, or tries to avoid and evade responsibility, they have to pay, and they should pay dearly. But you don't want to, Dick. I know you too well. You don't want to have the government be the nanny of all of us and all of industry. Well, that would be the worst thing that we could do. I mean, we're just not capable of doing it. Let's admit it. I think there's been too much of a thrust. Everybody's complaining in the Madoff case. Why didn't the SEC and why didn't the government stop this? Well, we don't do that. Caveat emptor doesn't apply. Due diligence is important. Know what you're doing.
Paul, bless my heart, you misjudged me again. What I'm saying is the government intruded itself into this whole area of auto safety and left the consumer to believe that I can be careless and relaxed in my own vigilance with respect to my consumption choice because the government is watching it, and then the government goes in and negotiates with this company a recall regimen that is less than what the market would have required of it. So I'm saying, indeed, had we had a world of more caveat emptor and less government false promise, we will secure your safety, we might have in fact had more quick resolution of this problem than we are today. Once again, we have the government in here saying to Toyota, why did you let us down, when indeed the government made the deal with Toyota?
Well, let's disabuse Toyota and the government that that's their role, and let's get back to what their correct roles are. I agree, in such a technical world as we live in, individuals can't determine electronic devices, mechanical devices of such subtlety as we have in this case. But the reality is we do not give a guarantee that everything is correct or works well. People have. But I don't believe either the United States government, or for that matter, any government in the world, should start taking on the responsibility of saying to its citizens or our citizens that you don't have to worry about this, everything is perfect, and if it goes wrong, the government or the people that make up the government underwrite this process. That's a mistake. And maybe both of us, you know, we're a little different philosophically, you and I, Dick, but we're not that far different. We still have faith in the American system. We know how it works. Let's get it right on track. Let's make sure that the government plays proper role if it's charged with being an inspector, but let's not say it is the sole responsible party to make sure everything happens correctly and perfectly, because it can't be done.
Congressman, why don't we shift our focus to Bernanke coming up today as well? Steve Leisman just laid out what he would be listening for, and part of that is to hear more about the mechanics of what else we can expect as we continue down the road. You know, you had the Treasury stepping in with these funds last night, and that caught some people in the markets by surprise. What do you want to hear from Bernanke today?
I really want to hear his gut reaction to where we are. I have a suspicion that we are on the road to recovery. And I'd like to get his evaluation of just how fast that will be or how slow it will be, what we can expect. I think the liquidity question of funds in and out of the marketplace and all these things are really tactics and superficial. What we're at now, matter of fact, what I'm preaching in every speech I make is, look, we're now psychologically hurting ourselves more than anything else, and that's our biggest problem. If we as a population start getting positive and moving forward and thinking positively, we will have a greater impact on the economy and the market than anything else.
But if you think things are going well and you expect to hear that from him today, that maybe the economy's chugging along, you'll also maybe expect to hear from him that he'll be pulling back from some of these extraordinary measures quicker than maybe some of the markets are expecting.
Well, he's going to call the timing on that. I don't know, but I haven't any doubt he's going to give us a little bit of a formula of how he withdraws from the market, and he should. We cannot have the government in at these rates indefinitely. It's always, you know, they're taking us off the bottle, if you will. And I remember as a little kid, I didn't like that too well, and I don't think any of of us do. But once you start to recover, you no longer need that extra feeding. You can get on by your own, and I think our economy is starting to get that point. That doesn't mean we've had recovery, good jobs, and there aren't hurting people. They're massive yet out there. But I think we are turning the corner on the way to recovery. Let's get to it, but let's be positive about it. Let's try and help out. Let the bankers want to lend money. Let the business people want to hire their people back. Let the workers work a little harder if they can to create more productivity in the system. And let government people stop yapping at each other and get to work and do a good job.
All right.
Well, let me also say that I've been saying about the Federal Reserve for some time. It's time that this agency starts thinking inside the box. They have a limited responsibility, and it's imperative for a fractional reserve system that they fulfill that limited responsibility with rigor. They ought not to be out there so undervaluing the price of capital that they negate the market's ability to efficiently allocate it to its more precious resource. We've been squandering capital on housing while starving capital to the manufacturing, and we sit around and wonder, why can't we have a more vibrant manufacturing sector? Because we have underpriced capital by virtue of the Federal Reserve's consistent policies of too much, too easy money for too long.
Congressman Kanjorski, oh, go ahead.
Hey, Paul, quickly, and that's how much we know each other. I can call him Paul. You know, you had 5-vote margin the first time the House passed the health care deal. Now Hoyer says unsure whether the big thing can go through. Do you think you've lost some of those 5? Do you think you could still do it? What would you tell Ms. Pelosi at this point?
Well, I still think we have this deficit of understanding, and we have this obligation to inform the electorate. I'm not sure whether we can do it or how soon we can do it, Joe, but I am relatively sure of one thing. We have to get on to some of the more important things, being the economy, jobs, and reforming the regulatory reform. We've got to get that done, or we're going to end up with another crisis because we don't have the tools.
So you're ready to leave it on the back burner?
Well, myself, you know, it never was the most important thing. It is important, but we can't afford to spend 2 years of a congressional or a Congress term on that. I think we're going to get to it. I sense even in the Senate and some of my colleagues on the Republican side are starting to realize if we miss this opportunity, it's going to be a horrible failure. And it has a tinge of politics of why it would happen. If we could just back up for a moment, just as I said to Dick, let's not, talk about what happened last year or 10 years ago or what the problems are.
You started it with talking about stuff 10 years ago. Anyway, thanks, Carl.
I just did that for a point. That's all.
All right, Congressman, thank you.